Good afternoon and a warm welcome to the Citizens Chat Show, streaming on YouTube at Civic Space TV. If you're a first-time viewer, thank you and welcome aboard. Do subscribe and spread the word. You can also follow us on all our socials, on Facebook, on X, and on TikTok. Yes, TikTok. So thank you very much. My name is Judith Atim, and today our topic is assessing political parties' preparedness for the 2026 polls. And as you know, the race to 2026 is on course. And for the last several months, the Electoral Commission has been at work as the country readies for 2026 general elections. And currently, the display of the National Voters Register is ongoing at polling stations across the country. And if you haven't already, please do go and cross-check and make sure your name appears. Also, 28th of April, that's 2 days ago, so was the deadline for resignation by public servants wishing to contest in special interest groups committee elections. And the next weeks and months are definitely largely going to be dominated by election-related activities. Uganda has 26 registered political parties, and all of these are eligible to field candidates for the various elective positions, right from the grassroots to the highest office in the land. Well, today, as we dissect this topic, we'll also take a look at the strategies political parties are employing to win the next polls, the issue of gerrymandering in elections and its broader implications. And also, we shall be exploring the major issues that will shape the 2026 polls. It is my pleasure now to welcome my guest to the show. From my immediate left, Dr. Robert Ojambo, head of the History Department at Kyambogo University. Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon, and happy to be here
Thank you.
after just Labor Day.
Thank you. Next to Dr. Ojambo, of course, is Dr. Sarah Bireete, Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance. Always a pleasure having you on the show, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you, and good afternoon, fellow panelists and then viewers. It's always a pleasure to be on this
We also
show.
We also have Mr. Joseph Ochieno, UPC political commentator and UPC ideologue. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, Joseph.
Always a pleasure to be here. I'm always delighted to have Sarah to my right. I'm always delighted that Sarah is farther away from anybody from anywhere except Bireete. And whatever happens, Labor Day, which is a day for workers, and you know UPC is a workers' party. So yesterday we were busy enjoying it. So trouble for those others. I leave it to my comrade, who's your next guest.
Thank you. And last but not least is retired Major Awich Pollar, who is the Director for External Relations at the NRM. He's also an advocate of the High Court. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, Major.
Thank you so much. Of course, the congressman is making statements in a hurry because our bond, the Buerantare bond, cannot be shaken. So me and Sarah cannot be separated. So we can enjoy the benefit of being next to her in the meantime.
Okay, thank you.
I hope the viewers understand these school solidarity things. Otherwise
You can explain a little bit.
Otherwise they might...
I can explain.
Yes, let Major explain.
That,
Yes.
for us who went to Ntare school, we had an academized relationship. Academized in the sense that it was for academic joke and it would make us pursue our academic endeavors because we assume that Weranyanye, which is in Bushenyi, and Ntare, which is in Mbara, have a long traditional bondage. And to the extent that it was presumed that when you're a man in Ntare, you marry from Weranyanye. And the examples are many. President Museveni, Janet Museveni, Professor Kamuntu, the wife, John Sasira, that my Baba, Jacqueline, and least but not least, Nekemia Matembe, Miriam Matembe. And the list is long.
You betrayed.
So that solidarity exists for real.
So dear viewer, Dr. Sarah Bireete here is an old girl of Bweranyanji. Did you get a Bwerantare?
No.
You may see, you betrayed the cause.
No, because life happens. You know, when you're at secondary school, you might think people in a particular school are handsome, intelligent, but when you mix with others, yeah, they may still be handsome, but other people steal your heart. Yeah,
That's interesting.
You know, actually, very interestingly, that is a powerful statement about that. Because one of the reasons, particularly our young viewers, why we continue with this, like, I mean, I think Sarah was right to bring it out, because I actually hadn't thought about it, that maybe many of the young guys may not necessarily get it in terms of traditions. I think these are the most important foundational spaces for young people post primary school. And genuinely, people at secondary schools will begin to be building up social networks. And those may go into social relationships, but indeed also academic. And these networks build on to much later. In fact, old boy associations right now and old girl associations are critically important. Entire school guys have done it very well for themselves. That most of the entire school guys, some have coalesced themselves around Mr. Museveni and NRM, and of course, which did not say that Paul Kagame was part of that. So these things actually impact in a very particular way. Now, in Mwiri, just for the context,
Dr. Bote was in Mwiri.
Dr. Bote was in Mwiri. Now, for us, we consider ourselves the national school. We gave the national anthem. Mwiri is now the most represented, the most successful school politically in terms of members of parliament. I actually found it very interesting the other day, although Mwiri sort of has gone down in terms of academic standards.
Really?
Relatively low. It's not compared, say, to the school that where you chair of the board, for which you do an excellent job. But
that school dominates.
But
everywhere.
For us, because Wanyange girls was not as competitively powerful as the Namagungas, we clamored. So for me, ironically, what they used to do,
your association
the relationship
school was Wanyange?
the next school. But the issue in terms of relationships was Nga. Namagunga is the Gezi, which is the school. But most importantly, at the time, the relationship would be about debating. Which school do you invite for debating or school social dances and things like that. and Namagunga was the top class on that. And then finally, if you don't mind.
Now, if they're invited, they may not go.
No.
Why are you saying that?
I think at the beginning, because Mwiri is rebuilding.
Because Mwiri is in a Benz.
It's rebuilding. Rugunda is actually our patron at the moment. But you take it then to university at the time. Robert and I were just talking. I just knew today that Robert went to meet you. So these solidarity things work very, very much, and it's important. I told a group of students, Judith, the other day I was meeting students from Bireete University, and I met 3 students. I was telling Dr. Ojambo, all of them were working from the same community, one identity, and I said, I hope it's coincidental you're coming from exams. Schools are where you should be able to build relationships and socialize and expand. So these are very important networks, and of course, Dr. Ojambo was reminding us of how in Michu the relationship was mainly CCE as a whole. Of course, some guys may not know this, but then for us, we also used to say Afro Box and then Afro Rat, because we want to taunt the Lumumbis that, well, the guys from Mary Stuart were our people, our girls, as it were. But these are important foundations that at the moment, unfortunately, I think sort of are socially are being lost, yes. To the extent that even as well as secondary school, we have a Nabikamba Hall group, basically the whole of residents that I went to in Mwiri. So this is important. So young guys, we should not take these relationships for granted, but certainly we shouldn't abuse them. Yeah.
Thank you. Let's now dive into our topic. Today we are, of course, assessing the readiness of our political parties as we count down to the 2026 polls. And like I said earlier, a very important exercise is currently taking place. That's the display of the National Voters Register at polling stations across the country. But just very quickly, I'll just want to pick your minds, each one of you, just your quick thoughts on the current display of this Voters Register. And are there any specific concerns that you might be having? Let me start with you, Sarah, then I get to Joseph, and I come back to Dr. Ojambo.
Well, I don't know whether any of us has verified their details on the voter register. I think that given the nature of life really, which is so fast, to the extent that even a public day is dominated by heavy traffic jam, and one wonders what's happening. Why is everybody on the road as compared to people resting in their homes and maybe coming out 1 or 2 in the evening? So the time, maybe people could do better verification of their details via using technology.
Online, yes.
Yeah, so I don't know whether Electoral Commission, of course you are aware that we are not yet doing voter education. So we are not up to speed with some of these details happening in the electoral process, either otherwise we would be knowing and telling people you can verify digitally. So there is basically minimal voter education going on. And I don't know, but it will be good for Electoral Commission if they are watching this show to put up the digital means. Many people will verify their details as compared to physical visitations, which are archaic. The world has gone digital.
Thank you. Your thoughts, Joseph?
I think absolutely. Very interestingly, I was a senior local government officer elsewhere for a long time. And amazingly, I never knew the name of the head of the Electoral Commission in UK. Throughout the time I lived in UK, that doesn't matter that much. But there is a head of electoral services at every local council. The update of voter registry, the applications for whether or not you want to vote proxy or online or things like that. These things are done as a matter of formality, year in, year out. And then to consider then that you bring it down back to here. And today, we're not able to do that. I came from Nagongera the other day, and as Sarah says, life is so fast. I was not able to go merely to Rock Hill Primary School, which is my voting space, which is hardly 1 mile away from my home. I couldn't go. There was genuinely really no time. But is it really the thing to do? Possibly not. So I think, Sarah, you're right that Simon, our chief, you better actively, seriously take this into account, especially if you're genuinely interested in people participating in this thing. If you're interested, really technology is the thing. But also I think as far as then political parties are concerned, I'm not quite sure whether these are conversations that strategically political parties are taking and seeing the implications of. So for the moment, I think we're busy politicking internally rather than looking at the strategic direction in which we're going to go. But how Sarah got to know that none of us have verified our voter registry? I nearly got embarrassed, but you're right.
I sent someone to check mine, and I had also done it online prior.
I told my nephew, but I don't think
Online
he
is
got the
working.
I checked at the time of the update. I actually went and checked my details.
Just there. Also, in other words, we sort of...
You can actually
Okay,
track
fine.
and check,
No, that's
yeah.
important. Very good.
Yeah. So, Mr. Ojambo?
You see, the biggest problem in this country is how to manage data. As we are talking up today, the census was done last year, but we don't have official information of what came out of the census. Maybe for you are lucky, but for us we are still waiting when the boss of counting people gave wrong information about regions, about things, and he withdrew the whole thing, and they were supposed to correct it and then release the official report to us. Now, that is where the problem of electoral, that thing, register you are talking about, comes from. NRM declares that they have over 20 million voters of NRM. They come up and say, no, we have now corrected it to 19 million. And we have excluded people of 16 years and below and so on and so forth. And the people take them serious, that is their register. So that is only one party which can declare in the whole country that they have this number of voters. And therefore, it gives a very difficult situation to the Electoral Commission, because the Electoral Commission and all government agencies in Uganda normally want to be dummies of NRM. They look at what NRM is saying, then they build on that and say this is the case, because they don't want any contradiction. Because you can contradict yourself, and by mid-morning tomorrow, you are not in that office, because they are not there because of their competency. They are there because of knowing, and that one, the president has said why he normally appoints them. He says, this one is a son of a very good friend of mine during the Bush War. This one is locally, and so on and so forth. So, coming to the real issue.
We have total registered voters, 19.9 million. NRM has
19. So all voters,
0.9 are for the
all voters in Uganda are NRM.
What a fraud.
Yes, that's what I'm telling you. And I've been looking at it very carefully and saying this country has a problem. I've even commented on it elsewhere and said this must be a fraud. You have given me the word. So when you are talking about the things, yesterday there was and this is why we want to relate the political parties. The political parties should be interested in how many people are registered voters and how they can mobilize those registered voters to support them. They are not doing that. And if they do that, they commit an offense. Yesterday there was a lady in Mitiana. I watched on TV. She went to check her name. And when she reached there, she found that the register was too big. And she said, these people are not from this place. I'm very confident this one are not in this place. Last year, I worked as a polling agent and they were not on the list. Where did they come from? Show me where they registered and how they have been registered. They whisked her, took her to police. Immediately she was presented to court and remanded.
Seriously?
That she was obstructing government programs. So that creates a problem. That creates a very huge problem. And therefore, you are going to see what happened in Kawempe. You have registered voters, 39. Were they that now? 39? No.
I'm not sure about the figures.
In Kawempe?
In Kawempe.
They were about 100 and something.
190,000. 190,000.
190,000. The ones who come to vote are only 39. That's what I was remembering. So I think so long as we still have a national data problem, we are going to hear NRM has 19 million voters. Then if UPC would also tell you 17. And at the end of the day, the number of voters would be bigger than the population in the country. Because you have a faulty national data system. I get shocked up to today. I have a national ID. I have a passport and many other things. But when I am going for any activity of the country, I still have to fill everything. So sometimes you have to remember, where did I put that, the date, especially the date of birth of our parents? Sometimes we forget. You don't want it to contradict. So you try it out. You say, let me just put anything. The thing accepts. So you become a different person. Because if you change the date of birth of your mother and the date of birth of your father, you cannot be the other one who registered 5 years ago. You become a different person. So you find different Ojambo Roberts there, but with the people being the same. As I end, I think political parties need to pick interest in this area. Because Sarah has been telling us constitutionally, we have the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to give civic education, the Uganda human rights, and political parties. Because the political parties, as you are engaging people to vote for you, you have to educate them about how they are going to vote.
No, they're the critical stakeholders, actually.
They don't do that. Many of them, with the exception of NRM, and NRM only gives them propaganda. Propaganda of how NRM is the best and what have you. They don't talk about the country, Uganda, and how to vote, how leadership in general. They are talking about the how they brought peace and what have you, things which are really outside voting. So in my view, I think political parties need to pick up this, but also the National Planning Unit need to really be, we have a huge National Planning Unit with a director with a PhD in economics. The one of the Mukiza is also a PhD, I think also in economics or statistics. So we really think that these people should help us, but they're not helping us. They are the ones giving us wrong information based on guesswork, based on so many other things, approximations. Why don't we register dates and births? I've always been telling people that the thing of population census, where we are counting people as if we are counting cows in a corral, in a village corral, is a cake. We need to adopt death and birth so that the birth registers the entrance of an individual and the death removes that individual, and you just need to keep on balancing those ones and you move on.
Thank you.
And then those would go into other
Thank you,
things.
Dr. Ojambo. Let me move to you, Major Awich. Your thoughts, of course, on the ongoing display exercise, but also if you could respond to some of the contradictions that your colleagues have highlighted regarding the numbers on the NRM register.
Okay. Now, about the current exercise going on, I think the challenge of getting the feel and the hit and feel of it may lie in the fact that most of us who are commentators are actually what we'd call a floating population. We are working class and we are always really not very near the center of activities. We leave very early in the morning, come late. So we don't even know the neighborhood, who is flocking there, how long is the line or how empty is the center for checking. But also, among us again, especially like me, I registered up country to keep myself in the constituency. So therefore, I don't even take interest in what is in Kampala. I imagine that the checking back home in my constituency is ongoing. So the assessment of how people are responding, or they have simply put this thing there and the persons, the officers who are deployed to do that is under a mango tree doing nothing. We can't now assess it because we are not there and it doesn't take our interest. We are a floating population. But I hope that in the villages where the people are deployed, there's a constant turn up and that the awareness raising for the exercise is up. So it's difficult to assess for me and I guess for my friends. So we just hope that it will be successful. It will only be, the success will be assessed by the indicators at the end of how many people turned up, how many people are verified, and how many people will be called voters. Now, on the question of the claims by my colleagues, I could address to one on the number of voters by NRM. As I said some time back, is that we get a confusion between NRM members register and NRM voter register. The two are different things. The membership, because we are the only party probably in the country who are institutionally recruiting young party members, we recruit at 16. And those who come, they constitute membership register. Meaning that the members of not all members of the party vote. But from the membership register, which is 19 million, we therefore extract the voters register. Then it brings the numbers down. And how we reached at this, we took the register to the villages 3 times, unless our deployed officer did some wrong work. But we took this register, people registered, we brought it back, put it in a computer and printed it, we took it back, we then took it back at a region. I was in Gula, remember, towards Christmas for 3 weeks. We worked on it, then we took it back. So 3 times back and forth at a village level.
How many voters do you have?
Yeah, when you make the deductions, when you subtract the underage voters, those below 18, how many do you then remain with?
I think, I'm not sure now the figures, I need to check, but we could, the dose of 16 years could be around 2 million.
But can I ask you a quick one? Which me and you are lawyers, and we know that the age of consent in the country is 18. How did those children make a decision to belong to NRM? And is it illegal?
The consent that you're talking about is a consent to something.
Consent, any decision to be legally holding, you must be 18 years and above.
So,
and this is in our constitution.
But this is not about any legal binding.
But they are members of the party. How did they take that decision?
Yes, but does it call for any legal binding?
No. You are illegally recruiting children. You are like, and these children are not of the age to
You
make
see,
a decision to belong to any party.
The consent import that you are making is a consent to something. For example,
Including joining a
consent to a
party.
contract,
No.
consent to marriage, consent to, it must be consent to something.
Joining a party is a
So
big
it's
decision.
not a consent is not a legally binding position, and
So it's an illegality that you are perpetrating.
It's not illegality.
It is.
Anyway,
Read the constitution.
I'm saying that minus the 2 million thereabout, you get the numbers. So my response to that claim is that we have membership register and we have voters register. The two are different. Now, on the other claim of civil education, civic education, we do it as a party. We do it in our talk to people, but we also do it by encouraging government because we're the ruling party, so we give governments work. Government derives work fund from our policy. How we do it through government is that patriotism. We do it through patriotism, which is a very much encouraged program in the government. And patriotism is really not so much about NRM. It's more or less about civic education. So we have told government to do it, and government has done a lot of civic education through patriotism. But we also, of course, would expect that Human Rights Commission, which is not a government agency, Human Rights Commission is not a government agency, it is an independent national institution. For whatever reason, whether logistics or finance, they should be doing their work, and equally the Election Commission. But as government, we do it, and we don't do it in a partisan way. We make sure that the government encourages civic education through patriotism. Last weekend, I went and addressed a patriotism class in Intari School for all the schools around Greater Umbara. We had expected about 10,000 students in that center. So, those are my response to the two claims and my comment about the exercise ongoing.
Okay.
So in other words, Comrade Awich is saying that minus the apparently clear illegality involving at least 2 million children, it's extraordinary, it's coming from NRM's official, that the NRA voters are 17 million. So the point is that NRA's official figure on the basis of this conversation is still 17 out of 19 million.
Judith, I wouldn't want to contradict Major Awich, who is a whole director and who is privy to information of NRM more than anybody here. But the Secretary General of NRM declared officially that NRM has 19.8 registered voters. And that was the General Secretary to do. So I don't know whether, and he explained that moves them from the 20 or so million that they had projected earlier. But that is not the issue. As I have told you, managing statistics in Uganda is still a very complicated thing because we don't register deaths and births accurately. There are Ugandans who are born in Uganda and they are not registered anywhere. And there are Ugandans who die in Uganda and they are not registered anywhere. So there is a problem of double counting, under counting, and sometimes not counting at all. As I can tell you, for me, the census, I never felt it. It never reached my home. So if I am recorded right now in the National Census report, it must be either by guesswork or estimation.
Just as information, in Uganda, persons below the age of consent, typically under 18 years old, cannot make legally binding decisions such as joining a political party. And here is why. They don't have legal capacity because Ugandan laws recognize 18 years as majority age and majority where people gain full legal capacity to make decisions, including political affiliation. political participation in Uganda requires that you are a person of majority age by our constitution. It's a violation of children's rights. Under the Uganda Children's Act, minors are protected from manipulation and exploitation, especially in political contexts. Political parties are prohibited from recruiting or using children for political purposes. So this is what NRM is doing.
What are you reading? What is that document?
I'm going to send to you, but these are legal principles of regarding age of consent.
Somebody's views.
No, legal principles regarding
Now,
age
Judith,
of
let's
consent.
save with these lawyers.
Yes.
These lawyers can go to their jargons of what are you reading, what you... Anybody in Uganda
common sense.
under 18
Yeah,
is a
can't take a
child,
decision,
and a
man.
child cannot belong to a political
They cannot
party.
take a decision.
Never. That one is not possible.
And yet, if you don't mind, why it's extremely important, and Sarah, thank you very much. It's basically really the foundation of our conversation.
The fraud.
So if really this is the spirit
The political
in which
fraud.
we're having a conversation,
Yeah.
then you can actually see how dwarfed the grounds are. And actually it's extraordinary. I mean, I hadn't really given it the depth of that. But if it is as it is, it's actually a fairly serious matter. But anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Major, I'll hear from you. I want us now to move a little bit to the strategies that our political parties are employing for the next election. And I'd like to hear from you first. How is the ruling party preparing and what are its strategies? Of course, I'd still like to hear your response to the concerns of NRM actually drafting minors to join the party. Yeah. So what are your key strategies as a party? But also for the rest of you, I'd like your views also regarding what you think opposition can do to position itself to also challenge the ruling party. Of course, I would like to hear your thoughts on issues like mobilization at the grassroots, building alliances, funding and resource mobilization for the parties and so on. Major, over to you.
The political party preparedness, in this case NRM, were very high. We're very prepared, and I could dare say without fear of contradiction that we're the most prepared party in the country. The legal basis is that all parties who are going to be active should be registered. We are registered. And as somebody said, there are 26 registered political parties, and we are one of them, and we are the majority. So legally basis, we are ready, we are prepared. There's no legal challenge about our legal status. We meet all the requirements that the Electoral Commission and the laws want. The other thing is that we're talking of preparedness at two levels. The preparedness at the offering a presidential candidate with the ingredient that you need to collect some signatures around the country, the number of districts we know. Some people may want to offer a candidate, but they may not even collect the signatures. So we are already prepared, and we have the capacity to collect those signatures. Though at the moment, we haven't done it because the form for collecting is issued by Electoral Commission, and the Electoral Commission has not issued those forms yet. But if it was individual basis by now, we would have finished collecting signature long ago, while some parties are struggling for putting in their party presidential candidate. The other thing is at parliamentary level and other structures, we are already prepared. We have our people who are eyeing for our flags. We know that they'll come for it, and there will really be very high competition for our flags. So that is another level of preparation. Of course, it brings contradiction that there is going to be competition for the flags, but that is the beauty of it. Because if you have parties like Gerrymandering, I'm sure you will have to appoint, actually persuade somebody to carry your flag in some constituency. So even UPC, if you went to Western Uganda, you may have to persuade somebody, please kindly hold us the flag. But for us, we are sure that the flags will be fought for, competed all over. And at this stage, at a lower level, LC5 or LC3s, we are the only candidate in the party in the country that is prepared to offer candidature all over the country. And this really makes me wonder, those who have been alleging electoral fraud, because in the last election, the entire West Nile, the entire Acholi, the entire Lango, the entire Karamojo, and possibly Teso, nearly more than half of the country, other parties did not offer candidate even up to LC3, no, even LC5. Even at boxes in Agago, for example, at the polling station, you don't find other candidates offering, what do they call it, people who stand there.
Do you think it's because these parties are not popular, or
They
is
are
it
not.
because the NRM has the advantage of incumbency?
No. And to prove the claim of election fraud, how comes in Agago, where these opposition parties even have no polling assistant, you find Museveni winning with this percent and the others with this percent, and polling station, their votes are declared? Meaning that if NRM was such fraudulent in regions or districts where other parties have no polling agent, would count all of it for NRM. But they have been winning. You have seen that Museveni, for some reason, some people vote for the other one. So I wonder what kind of fraud they talk about when all these regions, they don't have candidates, they don't have even polling agents, but we still count their votes, and they turn around and said we are fraudster. So the preparedness is that we are ready to offer candidates at all levels. The other level of preparedness is finance. We have mobilized money because this is an exercise which needs money, either to facilitate the polling agents that we are talking about, for fuel that we'll need, for publicity, for whatever that we do. We are financially prepared. And
are you going to declare how much?
And yeah, we can, where the law requires. Therefore, at the level of preparedness, legally speaking, logistically speaking, candidates-wise, and the preparation of our voter members. For example, today, we were in a training to train our officials for the supervision of structural elections. We have already had nominations for LC1s. We have already had nomination for flag bearer for LC1. We have already got structures for village level. And once we have the village elections of our structures, then the rest flows, because it is now college. Meaning this executive of this village will meet with the other executive in the parish and they elect. Then the executive elected at the parish will meet in the sub-county and they elect. Then the executive of the sub-counties will go to the districts and they elect. So for us, the biggest challenge is village elections. And for that case, I'm in charge supervision of Acholi region, which has 9 districts. So we are very prepared to meet the constitutional requirements, the legal requirement, logistics and finance. We are sorting it out. So we are the only party, and no wonder that Afrobarometer says, by their research, NRM so far is the most favored party in Uganda.
Thank you, Joseph.
This Afrobarometer.
You will respond to that. That's Joseph. In terms of how you think the opposition can actually position itself to also challenge.
Yeah, generally, yes. I must say that, as I said, I returned from home, and one of the meetings I had was with an individual who's seeking to contest for a senior position, and they were already contemplating primaries, meaning that it's not something that was there the other year. So we've got candidates who are seeking to contest, not as many as
for the UPC.
On UPC ticket. That's correct. And as I said, in one particular case, I think these guys are going for town council chairpersons, LC3 chairperson, but a town council, so it's fairly a coveted position. And they're more than one. I'm delighted that one of them in that particular position is a lady, and both of them whom I've met, and they're very decent people. So it's not going to be business as usual, again, for NRM, whatever they say. And I must repeat that it's not going to be a walkover for NRA in the east. It's not going to be a walkover for them in the north. I know Comrade Awich is rather confident about Acholi, but when the real campaign begins, we shall make sure that we give them a push for their money. It's definitely not going to be a push for them in some of the places, including possibly Western Uganda.
Are you running?
I hope that Comrade Awich is a lawyer, that which is where I'm going to come to. UPC is basically a leaderless political party. So I should run if I am the party president. At the moment, I'm not a party president. Akana is not a party president, but is a friend of Museveni and his wife. Akana's wife are friends of Mr. Museveni. They're occupying Uganda House illegally. They've put in a roadmap. Maybe I was going to come to that. They put in a roadmap. And then you ask, and you lawyers maybe advise you of air, or maybe on air, should you go for an injunction or not? I applied for a permanent injunction against Akana 4 years and 2 months ago, and the matter has never been disposed of. So whether or not someone else tries also in the next few days and few weeks to check on Akana is neither here nor there. So this is the mess about the NRA thing, and they're doing these things deliberately. The other person who officially holds, the position is your lawyer friend Bireete, who's taken the thing to his pocket and maybe somewhere in one of his chambers. Whatever Bireete has done, it's very difficult not to believe that Bireete has got no interest in this party. You can't declare yourself a leader on 28th of December 2020, and do nothing until today. So whatever his tricks and projects are, whatever the justification, and not some of the justification people say that, under this NRA regime, and they're crude, they beat up people, you need to navigate if you're survival. In 2020, October, when I pushed in for this party election thing, a number of people by this area, a number of leaders told me that, look, my son, some people just eat your money. My son, Museveni, not allowed to go. But to be fair, Koguru is going to be excited. I went on a consultation trip, started in West Nile in Arua, went to Gulu, went to Soroti, met the Karamoja delegation in Soroti because at the time they were busy beating up, NRA was busy beating up Chagulanyi's people in Moroto, so I couldn't go down there. Came to Mbale, met the Kapchora delegation in Mbale, came to Tororo, came to Iganga, met the Busoga delegation down there. And it was absolutely fine. And by the time I reached Kampala, they realized that, I was basically getting serious. After that, the following day, I proceeded to Mbarara, then went to Bushenyi, Mbarara, then went to Kabale, came back to Bushenyi, So I did a round trip as part of this, and I was not inhibited in any way whatsoever, to do, in context. Fast forward to where we are at the moment. I think political parties in opposition, it's unfortunate. For us, UPC, basically what is holding us back is a question of leadership. But there is a genuine national interest for people coming to political party. Many people approach me sort of almost every week that they want to stand for UPC leadership. Somebody yesterday, before my phone crashed the other day, had rang me from Western Uganda, want us to discuss this roadmap, meaning the dilemma we have. I cannot set up a roadmap and yet they want to stand, this particular individual wants to stand for LC5, things like that. Generally, UPC is inhibited by leadership, and for that reason, I'm not quite sure we can say we're very prepared. But there is generally goodwill. Now, if you then go into other political parties, NUP, of course, enjoys a strong base here in Uganda. NUP has got a voice beyond the boundaries of traditional Ugandan part of Busoga. And I think, actually, you meet a number of people, particularly in Busoga, who got reasonably goodwill for them. What organizations structurally they're doing, I genuinely believe that they should be doing better, unless they're doing many more of them kachine. Of course, FDC, they have got this mini split. Meaning, if you take UPC, then you take DP, for which Norbert Mao has recommitted himself to that, and then you take FDC and the breakaway faction, and then NUP. I think it was urgent that we should not be having leadership squabbles in any of the opposition political parties at this stage. It was urgent, as a comrade which said, that our leadership are generally quite clarified and clear, and our messages as different political parties clear. And so therefore, this time we should be using it for coalescing around ourselves, around strategy, which is, what is it that we are doing as UPC, and what is it the other side are trying to do to mitigate this actually almost apparent NRA fraud. That is not happening enough. But in any case, some people are asking us, we can have different opinion about this, that do we strategically go ahead and coalesce around one individual as a candidate? Of course, these are conversations to have, or around one party, or do we go for strategic tactical voting? Tactical voting works in many democracies, so are very common, and they work quite well. And tactical voting is a way in which you'd say that, in Agongera, quite clearly UPC is strong, or in Agongera we've got relatively strong, but we have also a good candidate who's likely to win. So we back, say, UPC for argument's sake. You know very well that maybe possibly in Kashari, it's unlikely that UPC will do well, but they can build a foundation. Let's maybe back FDC, something like that. These things happen, but this is a strategic tactical thing. After 40 years of NRM, there's no reason why they should be having a walk in the park. But because they've got the money, and most of the money they've got are public money, and because they've got the security, and in fact, if you see what happened in Kawempe, meaning scaring people, it's not surprising that we're where we are. The psychological game on Commodore Awich of this 19 million, I think it was a PR stunt, which if I was advising them, I wouldn't. Because I said, I've done this political work and I've advised governments. One of the things that NRA could easily have done, you could easily have pushed the number to 14 million. 14, 15 million. That motivates the country and say, well, these guys are majority people. So tomorrow, whether you rig it or don't rig, maybe you almost certainly rig, things like that. People say not surprised. But to make this disastrous thing that you control 99.9% of the electorate, I think if you're not careful, it was an overzealous guy. I hope is not within the NRA party headquarters of Community, but Community will not be able to do that.
Thank you, Joseph. Sarah, how do our parties work and actually challenge or counter the powers of the ruling party?
Plainly speaking, we do not have political parties, effective political parties to carry forward democracy in Uganda. We don't have. Why do I say so? What are the qualities of a good political party? Clear ideology and vision, strong leadership, internal democracy, organization capacity, coupled with the social bases, and these social bases don't exist in Uganda because of poverty, public engagement, policy formulation and implementation, and the inclusivity, accountability, and integrity. Even if we stop there, political parties are sustained by their social bases. A social base means the membership with the capacity to hold the party leaders accountable, with the capacity to fund their programs, with the capacity to lead and recruit members. If you look at the NRM, the mass party, its membership is free, meaning that they don't have a social base, regardless of the numbers, because their activities are not funded by the membership. Where they get money from, I think 80% of their resources are taxpayers' money. One got illegally through numerical strength in parliament, but the other also accessed illegally because they are the party in power. And the corruption that we see their leader exhibiting, including the recent bribery of legislators. So when you look at the ability of the NRM to engage, if today NRM lost power, because I also share the school of thought that the NRM is kept in power by its military wing.
Of course.
Originally NRA, but now UPDF. If you detached NRM from the army and from the coffers of the public, there is no party. In my view, there will be no party, and there is no party beyond the two structures.
I agree.
Thank you. When you come to the young and the biggest opposition party, the National Unity Platform, they are now 4 years old, or about 5. They've put up a headquarters bigger than NRM. They have a social base, diaspora people put money on table. They have active membership of young people. Although the regime harasses, the NRM youth wing, military wing harasses The young members of NUP with the kidnaps, torture. Almost on a weekly basis, there is a prominent NUP person kidnapped, thanks to their military wing. So, ideology, whatever you can fault to them, given that their constitutional amendments were held by elements in court. Yeah, when you go to the FDC, for 20 years of Uganda's multi-party dispensation, we used to credit the FDC as a proper reset party under the 1995 Constitution. Structures, headquarters, leadership, commendable leadership in society. It was surprising when the FDC was scattered with a few handouts belonging to a taxpayer from the president. Scattered. People had sacrificed. I remember the comrades that participated at the establishment of the FDC, writing, doing research. So you would think that that would be a lasting party, collapsed with the taxpayers' money. You go to the old parties of UPC and DP, they've been struggling since the return of multi-party politics. For obvious reasons, they were targeted after NRM. The ban was directly targeting them, to cripple them. Some people in the CA debated, outthrowing these old parties so that we start afresh. And then others said, no, you can't rewrite history like that. But the actions more or less were meant to write them off. UPC was stronger when parties were under a ban than after. The Presidential Policy Commission, the Ranyarares that kept fighting, Zaka Olumu and others, they were stronger than these parties today. So UPC and DP were stronger in the ban for parties than when they were set free, because then opportunistic tendencies took over. You look at the Democratic Party today, and then the two parties again, one leg in the government, one leg. In a multi-party dispensation, you can join a coalition of parties. Government can lead through a coalition of parties. If we were sincere people, NRM would be leading with a coalition of UPC and DP. But because of the insincerity in their dealings, and the other parties involved, of course, it's not one-sided. You have NRM as a majority party in power, and then you have people with one leg of UPC going into the bucket of NRM, another leg of Mao going into the bucket of NRM, without any principled coalition or cooperation. I know that Honorable Norbert Mao always moves. I've never seen
his coalition agreement.
Which
he knows.
Does himself yes.
My brother Norbert. Lest you forget, no doubt.
It's under his arm like this, and I have it signed, but you can't even see it. So,
enjoy.
Many sources in NRM, especially members of SEC, have said they never discussed that cooperation agreement. They just saw a press conference also with the parties there. I don't know whether Awich had an opportunity to discuss that cooperation agreement before. So that's the state of parties. Are these parties ready to join elections? They are all in shambles, in my view. Only that NRM has a bigger manipulative space. They get about 8 billion from Electoral Commission, almost every year. They have a lot of money. They also have access to the treasury. They have freedom to go about their business because other parties don't. NUP mobilization tours, they can only do one or two, then they are stopped by their military wings in state institutions. So they have freedom to do whatever they want, including now recruiting underage children. If we had a serious rule of law, tenure in the country, NRM would be in court explaining how people who are not eligible to give consent on anything, give them consent to become members. Agreeing it, and they carry forward with it, and they talk about it. Our members are 16. How? Informed consent in this country is obtained after attaining maturity age, which is in the constitution and all other laws. These people can't even consent. You can't even decide on their own what school to study from. But they have here that they have joined the NRM. You people, this is a crisis in the country.
Thank you. Let me come to you, Dr. Ojambo.
Yeah, Judith, when
just a minute.
I've heard from my colleagues, and they tend to, the NRM man tends to show that NRM is very prepared. I want to tell you, no party is prepared here for any meaningful election. Selections, yes, because that's what happens in these third world countries. Selections, you get a few MPs here, a few councillors and the chairmen who they wish should be there. Those who are not supposed to be there will never be there. And things move like that. Because for me, I believe that preparation for elections must begin with the government itself. We have a government which is running business. Election is one of the businesses that government must be serious with through the Electoral Commission. And therefore, the first person to prepare us into elections should have been the government itself. If they believe in democracy, they believe in election as a form of method through which people get into political offices, they would do that by number one, every electoral petition, presidential petition, there are recommendations that are given by courts, including orders. And none of them have been worked upon. When Besigye was going to court, they were giving them. When Mama Mbabas went to court, they gave a number of them. Even with this case, the last case, which did not yield to good results, still there were a few recommendations that were made. Now, those ones, you don't see them anywhere, and therefore is business as usual. I have always argued that if the president of Uganda, President Museveni, and his government had some magnanimity, they would still put things right and win the election. They still have an opportunity to win the election. With 50-56%, even people may get happy. Some of us would get happy and support them if they were serious people. I really don't think that the president need to strengthen the military wing so that he can win an election, as they do. The other day they passed over 10,000 policemen for election. We have been complaining of security here, people are stealing goats in the village and so on. But when elections come, there is now a training for all CIDs on Entebbe Road. And I've been finding out why they are there right now. And the whispers are telling you they are preparing them for election. So they concentrate on the military wing. No, this is Mitiana Road. There is a place there where they are now. We don't have senior CIDs now in office. They're in training. I really feel that they are concentrating on non-issues, issues which only create problems in the country, hardening and strengthening the military gerrymandering wing, and not dealing with issues that complicate elections in this country. Because going for elections with the things the way they are, we are not going to get different results. Africans and Ugandans want to do things in the same way, but expect for different results. Once you still have a shambolic electoral commission as it is, you will still have problems in the country. Once you still have a country where the military is so much involved into the electoral process, you will still have election malpractice and people being beaten and killed and so on. Once you still have problems with the voters register up to today, when you still have problems with the way you declare results, because there were proposals that let's declare results at the district, including the presidential elections, at every district. They are saying, no, that one is national. Those things should be fed to national. You will still have the same problems. So the first unpreparedness is the state or the government of Uganda. So there is a problem. Number two, political parties. There is no political party that is prepared here for elections. Only that, to agree with my colleague, the NRM only survives on the state. The NRM is like a tick on a cow. So it is not the tick that is very, very powerful, but the cow. Once the cow dies, the tick will obviously die. I'll give you an example of Kenya. A few years ago, KANU was a mass party in Kenya, to an extent that you would think that it is the only party in Kenya. Everybody was Nyayo. As I speak today, 20 years down the road, because KANU started collapsing in 2002, when they started going into these other things. Today, KANU does not have a member of parliament, not even one. They don't have a member of parliament. KANU does not have any senator. Out of the 47 senators, we don't have a KANU senator. KANU was stronger than NRM the way it is here today. Yeah. It was stronger than them. But the problem is that KANU was behaving like a tick on a cow, surviving on the state of Kenya. Once the state went to other parties, KANU has collapsed. And I foresee, as a historian, I foresee NRM going the same direction. Because, if anything, they don't have even a headquarters. They are still renting for 40 years.
They haven't bought that thing?
I doubt. I doubt.
No, we have that plot 10 is our
You
land,
bought it finally?
It's our property. And even the number of office spaces are much more than the number of office
in
spaces.
Ramuchako, the building.
No.
Oh, okay.
So plot 10 is our property.
Okay.
And where we're going to build the headquarters, we're going to build it in plot 10.
Okay.
But the current office space is big enough.
I agree with you, but it's really at shambles. So what I was saying is that even the NRM that you think is prepared is just behaving like a tick. Now, these are the political parties. I want to agree again with Sarah that they don't have the real characteristics of a political party, especially a political party in opposition. They are just vehicles for elections where people can see and run there for elections. Some people don't even believe in what they are saying. And a good example is what now you see in NUP. You find there people who have discovered that, yes, last year they survived in NUP. Now they are looking for another vehicle to board this coming election. They did not go there with all the principles that Sarah has read. But you see, the trouble with Africa is that we think that you can grow vegetables in a desert. That you have a desert and you grow there vegetables, cabbage and dodo and what have you. They don't survive in a desert.
You need a greenhouse.
So the conditions in Uganda for political parties are like a desert. They're like a desert. Political parties can only gain members by mobilizing, moving around the country, opening up branches. In Uganda, that is not allowed. You cannot move around. You move around, police will be giving you a stop. Recently, remember, we are even in an election period where we are supposed to be mobilizing. Nope, we are supposed to mobilize because our first election is going to be youth elections. They were supposed to mobilize youth to vote, to put in these places in the district councils and what have you. They have been told, even at the headquarters, they cannot. And as I speak today, NUP offices are surrounded by army gun-wielding men. We don't know whether they are UPDF, whether they are JAT, whether they are from Electoral Commission. You don't know. So they are gun-wielding men. If you have military techniques, you can go and investigate who they are. But the police is not saying anything. They are not part of the police. They are not the army. But they are there surrounding the place. You cannot enter there. Now you expect such a party, you blame it that it is not mobilizing. You want people's children to be shot dead. Number two, even the parties.
I want you to wind up because it's
this
about
is
time
the
for
last
us to take a break.
This is the last one. Now, these parties are supposed to operate, because you see, when you're a political party, you are not supposed to only expect normal situation. You are supposed to prepare yourself to deal in an abnormal situation. But it looks like they don't have capacity to do that. You know, you cannot start a rebel group in these South American countries. But the people have sustained rebellions in towns. They don't go to the bushes. In Guatemala, they go in the towns and set up rebellions there, and they keep the countries on toes. So I don't think our parties have capacity to do that, because that would require a lot of resources to carry out clandestine mobilization, which will not be discovered, and so many other things. So I really feel that next year in 2026, we are going to face election.
Thank you.
And we shall get the same results.
Thank you, Dr. Ojambo. Joseph, you wanted to say something very quickly, and then we take a break.
Just very quickly. Milton Obote said in the 90s that the best way to kill a snake is to cut off his head. That really is in part what Mr. Museveni did, and in the way Sarah was saying it. As far as UPC is concerned, with the exception of absence of leadership, as a political party, we are a viable political party. And I'm not saying it for any reason, but I'm saying it because I'm completely convinced I know structurally what it is. In fact, if we're able to resolve the issue of leadership, we would be very viable. But that's one of the reasons why Mr. Museveni is spending a huge amount of resources and energy to check that. That said, I just quickly want to say this. This is the resource thing for which NRM has got huge advantage. Because it's a public thing. Apparently, I've committed myself that in a future UPC government, or a government in which UPC is elected, I would review this legislation for funding of political party. I think taxpayers should not, be responsible for funding of political parties. Members of political parties should be the ones to be able to fund this. So NRA has got advantage at the moment, but whatever the case, it's a huge amount of money. And then finally, Dr. Ojambo, I know you're going to move on. Dr. Ojambo made an important point about this register of births and deaths. I know I'm taking you back a bit. In 2005, when I returned, one of the key things I actually said as a commitment, and I think we need to be able to discuss this thing, is that we need to make registration of births compulsory. But my argument for making registration of deaths also compulsory was to make sure that maybe doctors and people who have access to patients know that, well, every death must be formally certified. Whereas that was my argument at the time, I think, in a way, looking back to where we are, I think those two are extremely important. And there really no reason why they cannot be part of our politics. In any case, one of the reasons we're having this is we're going through elections and we rarely discuss policy. As political parties, we don't know where UPC is versus the other on some of these key things. But of course, UPC always is clearly clearer. And if we're able to make sure that we're able to challenge Mr. Museveni, we need to be able to have a persuasive argument, persuasive debate.
Thank you.
Beyond the fact that they've just been in for a long time.
Thank you very much, Joseph. It's time for us to take a break. And then when we return, I'll still give you Major the microphone, because I'm sure there are lots of issues that you'd like to respond to. Plus, after the break, we'll also look more into the issue of gerrymandering and its implications on the fairness of elections in Uganda, and what are the issues that will shape the coming elections. All this will be after the break.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from the break, and glad that you're still with us here on the Citizens Chat Show. Today we continue with our conversation on assessing the political parties' preparedness for the 2026 polls. Before we went into the break, of course, we were looking at how parties are strategizing ahead of 2026. We had what the NRM is doing, and we also had views about how the opposition can position itself to counter the NRM come 2026. In this segment, we want to look now more on the issue of gerrymandering and its broader implications to the fairness of our elections in Uganda. But I'd like to hear what exactly is gerrymandering and what are the ethical and democratic implications of this to our broader politics. But before we take a look into that, I'll give the microphone to Major. Before we went into the break, your colleagues had a number of issues that I think it's only fair that we give you the microphone to respond to some of these things. And also not forgetting, after this, we'll also look at the broader issues that we think will likely shape 2026.
Well, many issues were mentioned, but I don't think I'll go into each of them. I don't think I would have enough time to explain the rights of a child in the involvement of political activities, and also the duties there too, plus the protective areas, or to what scope is a child protected or prohibited. There is no prohibition. The rights as it is, rights does not apply by way of prohibition. Rights by nature are by way of promotions. So you can't ask me that there's a right that stops a child. So the children have rights to participate. Therefore, I don't find a contradiction in a political party making children engage. Just like labor, for example. Do you know that people have a wrong tendency of thinking a child should not work? They are work appropriate for children. So they eliminate age, and the work should only be not hazardous. A work should not conflict with education. But if people interpret laws in common sense without knowing the law itself, you'll say, no, a child is not supposed to work. No, that's not true. Therefore, parties are actually encouraged to make children participate. Prohibiting children instead is a violation. So to prohibit them is rather a violation, and promoting them is actually a promotion of their rights in civil activities. Now, that said, I want to conclude by what I heard from my friends in the segment of the preparedness of political parties. Any judge outside there among the audience, regardless of reasons that have been argued for whether this party has not done this for this or that, whatever reason, a judge out there is able to see that of all the political parties in the forthcoming election, as far as preparedness is concerned, it is on an NRM. It is on an NRM that is prepared. Anybody else who has failed to be prepared will give his or her own reasons. Oh, I didn't prepare because of this. Oh, because my other leader put the leg in the government and they put the leg outside. Or the other leader, the wife is a minister in the government. Whatever reason they will give. But if there was somebody drawing a consensus on our presentation here, it is clear to the viewers that NRM is the only party that is prepared for this election. And therefore, I take this opportunity to call on the voters to vote for us.
You want to say something before we go to gerrymandering? Or we just go there?
No, my only rejoinder is that the age of consent remains 18 in Uganda. And people below 18 have no legal capacity to make a decision to join political parties.
And NRM has it.
And all political activities have a cap of 18, including the basic fundamental right of voting, 18 and above.
Okay.
And that NRM have almost certainly committed a criminal offense.
Prohibition is a violation. Prohibiting children from exercising their civil rights is a violation. Rights are not promoted by prohibition. Rights are protected by promotion, not prohibition. You prohibit the violator. And in this case, if it is the right holder is the child is the right holder. You don't prohibit the right holder. You only promote the child holder. You don't say a right holder is protected by a prohibition. A right holder is only promoted by a promotion of the rights. And they have a right to civil activities, and that rights can only be promoted.
There's a difference between civil and political rights. I think we need to rest this debate. The Uganda Children's Act protects children from exploitation, including political exploitation. Yes. Whereas children have rights, the parties recruiting them are exploiting their innocence before they attain majority age.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I think that's
almost indeed, almost quite clear. Right. Criminal offense, which they do all the time. But as we say, we rest this as we continue.
Okay, so gerrymandering, we talk about this a lot, but what is it exactly, and how does it impact the fairness of our elections? I'll start with you, Dr. Sarah.
Well, I was quickly looking at the recent data statistics from UBOS. For the record, I did receive a copy of the UBOS final report. I think the first day of graduation at Makerere is when I received, for this year, is when I received the final copy, the big document of the UBOS statistics report for our reference in our work. So when you look generally at the population data, by way of a summary from the 2024 census, you have the central region, Buganda, with the about 11.2 population, I'm rounding off, 2 million people. Eastern region, about 9.04. Northern region, 7.2 million people. Western region, approximately 10 million people. You go to West Nile, 3.3 million people. Karamoja, 1.5 million people. Kampala, 1.9 million people. Wakiso, 3.3 million people. But when you look at representation for directly elected MPs, the Eastern region, which stands at about
7.2 million.
9.04 million people, has the highest number of MPs.
That is what?
Eastern region, 144 MPs. When you look at Central Buganda, which has the highest number of people, Buganda, and this outside Kampala and Wakiso, 11.2 million people, it's represented by total, including Kampala and Wakiso, 105. So when you add Central region population, 11.2 plus 3.3 Wakiso, that will take you to 14.4. You add about 2,016,000. So you have a population of 16 million people in Buganda, represented by 105 directly elected MPs. Whereas Eastern Uganda of 9 million has 144 million people. You come to Western Uganda, a population of almost 10 million people, more than the East, has 135 MPs. Northern Uganda, which includes, West Nile, Karamoja, and others, it has the least number. No, it's more than Central, 127 million people. But Central has the highest number of people, around 16.5 million people, and with the least number of MPs. So what explains the way constituencies are drawn? Karamoja constituency alone, which is population-wise 1.5 million people, has 25 MPs. But when you come to Kampala, which has 1.9 million people, it has about 5 MPs. So what explains the way we do demarcate our constituencies? When you go under the Constitution, Article 63.5 on constituencies, it requires for a proportional population quota. People are supposed to represent same number of people. So when you go to Ochieno now, where you have 3.3 million people, you have, Ochieno has also about 5 MPs. You have a person representing about 300 million people. And in other constituencies, you have an MP representing about 3,000, when the others are representing about 300,000. So that kind of, and if you follow this gerrymandering, political gerrymandering is a big crime in the US and other developed countries. When you follow through, and it's something we are studying, when you follow through, you will find that opposition strongholds have least MPs to control the numbers in parliament. So when you hear about NRM numerical strength, part of it is Karamoja, 1.5 million people with 25 MPs, Wakiso, 3.3 million people with about 5 or 6. I haven't checked the number, that's why I'm guessing for Wakiso. So that's the political gerrymandering, because Wakiso will highly unlikely vote NRM. So you will leave it. But if Wakiso today was pro NRM, they would divide it, and you find that Wakiso has 30 MPs. But because it's opposition, they want to control how many numbers of MPs can opposition get. So this political gerrymandering has gone on unchecked. And over the 30 years of the 1995 Constitution, it is now extreme. And I want to invite Ugandans to watch the new constituencies that will be created. We shall reach a time when even NRM predominant areas, you find 1,000 people have an MP. When in Kampala, you have so many millions with an MP, because Kampala is opposition.
Interesting that the president just pronounced 3 new districts for Tororo.
Yes.
Tororo, and then Mulanda, and well, you come from that side. You
want to laugh at me? I don't really come from that side.
Are you in any district?
I am actually districtless.
What do you mean?
Are you from the?
Museveni gave 3 districts,
and you are left out.
And left out means that I wanted it. I didn't.
No, I mean your area is.
No, the Nagongera is the one yet to be named. So you can see how petty play game kind of thing is. So there is Mulanda, there's Mukuju, and then Nagongera stroke Kisoko, and where Fox is supposed to be a new district of West Budama, but it's not named. And so the argument is, should it be named Kisoko, Nagongera, West Budama, or should it be named Toro? Because apparently there's a legal argument.
So where is Tororo remaining?
Tororo is a city, and Tororo doesn't have a name. And I've been arguing that naturally that should be the district. So I hope, actually, at the end of the day, the Tororo district will be my district, and I hope the headquarters will be in Nagongera. Which is
Give them an alternative of your personal name. Tell them they can name it Ochieno.
That is a fantastic thought, and I'm going to actively consider that.
But from the explanation that Sarah has given about this whole gerrymandering thing, do you see this creation of these new districts basically as a ploy or an attempt?
And I'm coming to that. Because in any case, and these things are done nationally by Mr. Museveni deliberately, and it's done as part of NRA operations, but also done by NRA choir masters. At the peak of the conversation about the split of Toro, my own original constituency, West Budama North, was divided into 2. I know for a fact that the constituency was divided, I think 2015 or thereabout, because certain people were trying to avoid being in the same constituency with me because they expected me to come and stand in 2015, which I didn't. So it can go as petty and as basic as that. But on the other, they brought in somebody else because they wanted to use the same trick that they used in 2011 to rig my votes. But that, of course, gave them an opportunity to create 2 more constituencies in the adjacent constituency. The 1980 constituency, as Toro South Central, which was my one constituency, is now going to be equivalent of 2 districts and sort of nearly 7, 8 parliamentary members of parliament. So that's how shambolic it is. But it's being done purely because of the NRM vote kind of stuff. But if only
Are they pro-NRM?
they're quite masters. That's where Tango, Udoy, and others are, and Fono Pondo and Jacob both, and these are the guys who sing NRA in Toro, and they're very much driven. That said, Fox was very, very objective in the recent discussion about the breakup of the district, because I had a conversation with Fox, and the issue was that whereas the push for the district was partly pushed by Tesu, and although this is something that was done between Jessica Lugo and the guy from Tesu, Sanjay the other day clarified that he not ate the rat, that he basically only demonstrated that he can eat the rat.
Who is that? Did he get it?
They got Mukuju district, which they had been given in 2005, but they refused because they didn't want it as Mukuju district, they wanted it as Toro district. So basically, the minority Teso community basically want to say Toro to be part of Teso. And then you take it so low, so down there that the breakup of communities is based on identity, and then people think that districts will help and bring in services, which of course it hasn't. And that's really what has happened. So the original Toro district, which was the whole of Bukedi, which ran from Palisa, Bugwere to Bunyole to Samia to our own West Budam and then Toro town, has now been split, I think, nearly 9 districts. And that is how shameful it is. But unfortunately, this other one, when you talk gerrymandering, the fact that now you begin to squeeze these things on an identity basis. Ekanye, who threatened to commit suicide in Parliament, doesn't speak Atesu, but he was trying to do so because he's saying he's now Atesu. And he's a son of Jabs. And when I first met him a few years ago in London, he was youth MP for Eastern Uganda, and he was calling me Nera, uncle. And I think it's just a ploy child game at the moment. NRM has done this thing in such a manner that, well, you give me the votes, you take it. The timing of this new district is quite clearly the case that Mr. Museveni and Jessica Lupu had to check the campaign we had for Nagongera Road, no Nagongera Road, and no votes for NRA. At the moment, of course, you saw on the media that once these things came, people like Otala's ex-wife, Phoebe, who dancing because she thinks dance because we are happy, but dance because now Toro has been split into 4 and you've got an opportunity to stand for election. So it's basically me, myself, and I politics rather strategic, looking for long term. But finally, actually, yes, this gerrymandering thing is interesting. UPC was accused of gerrymandering in 1980 general elections, I may say so. But apparently, the constituencies in which UPC, the elections took place in 1980 general elections, it's important, Sarah, was the constituencies demarcated for 1972 elections, which did not take place, but based on the 1970 census. And so it really had nothing to do with the UPC and gerrymandering, but at least to be fair, it was actually clearly demarcated as it was at the time. And you can remember that, of course, in 1980, we had only 120 parliamentary seats, and we had an excellent service delivery for which NRA guys can only just smile.
Dr. Ojambo.
Yeah, Judith, this has been a huge debate in Uganda, and beginning with what Mr. Ochieno was talking about. The first time gerrymandering became a very popular was during that election of the UPC and the DP. A gentleman called Elliot Green has written a book titled District Creation and Decentralization in Uganda. And this is a book based on empirical research. And in the book, I'll just read an excerpt of his abstract and how he thinks. I examine 6 potential reasons why these districts might have been created and argue through the use of election results. So he uses election results, interviews, and other data collected, that district creation has been primarily as a source of patronage in the ongoing need for Museveni to win elections. I conclude with reflections on the relationship between economic and political reforms and patronage in the developing world as one of the major problems. Now, when you read this man's book, and I'm lucky I've read it in and out because I use it to write some other things, he tries to first look at the economic situation in Uganda. And many Ugandans, and you will excuse me for using this word, I use it very much, have been duped that when they give you a district, it will improve on your economic status of that area. They have been duped that, districts come with hospitals, they come with roads, they come with everything. That would only be true if formation of the district would mean increase in resources for these districts. In Uganda, unfortunately, because of our limited resources, districts are formed on a neutral budget. By neutral budget, I mean, if the budget to local government was 3 trillion, I am just giving, I don't know what is the current budget for local government. So if it was 3 trillion, we do not have capacity to increase it to 10 trillion in the next financial year. So what happens is that they give you a district and divide the money that was coming to the mother district into the number of districts that have been formed, so that each group can have their small share. And if there is an increment, it's not normally 10%. I have looked at it carefully. It's not normally 10%. So you get a district like Bushenyi, which is now broken into so many districts. When you look at the amount of money that they were being given before the district was broken, is almost the same. So you take yours, and because the things are tribal, they are now going into clan basis, they are going then religion, this group has Catholics and so what. The Catholics are happy that we are controlling our little thing, but they don't know that that cannot be important. So that's why the services have remained poor. The only group that benefits from this gerrymandering is the political class. Because wherever there is a district, there is a woman MP, there is another DC, there is I'm still mentioning the politicians, the politicians first.
LC5 chairman.
The political group. Then the administrators, of course, you get another DC, you get a cow, you get a district agriculture officer, you get all those things. So that elite political class benefit, but the majority of the people, the only thing they want from them is patronage. The other issue, like, for example, if you go to Western Uganda, is the one I've studied very carefully. Everything that was a county now is a district. So you have districts in Uganda where you have a woman member of parliament for the district of a former county and another MP, another MP. So you get 2 MPs. Now, when those MPs are given that opportunity, and districts are there is a process through which a district is formed, through the district council and what have you, and that voting. And so, but those have only remained formalities. Districts are negotiated at State House. And recently you saw the Tororo one. This one is confirmed by what just happened recently. The president sat with those people and said, I have now decided to give them 3 districts and a city. So the man becomes a patron of that district. And therefore, everybody who benefits from that, you must respect the patron. And the patron, therefore, benefits from it. So gerrymandering is real in Uganda. And Sarah has already said something that I don't want to waste people's time to repeat. Once they discover that your area may not create that patronage, you will never get a district. Sarah, in Uganda now, the biggest constituencies are Busiro, the one of Segona. South, I think,
Even
and
Semuju.
Kiramu municipality.
Yeah. If
They have 400,000 voters.
yeah.
400,000 voters. Now that is the benchmark of dividing a district, the number of the people in that area, because they feel that they want to give everybody a chance. Normally, that is normally one of it. Then the second thing is the further you are from the social amenities, key social amenities, hospital, a school, and so on and so on. Now you can imagine the MP for Wakiso district, woman MP for Wakiso district.
You have to go around the campus.
The woman MP of Wakiso district has about 2 million voters.
3.3.
In fact, I'm saying the ones who have registered.
Voters.
The ones who have registered.
Yeah.
To over 2 million voters. In fact, it's the biggest.
Even in this
The only place where you find such voters is in Nigeria. In Nigeria only, in Africa. So,
Doctor, the distance is also burdensome.
Yes.
Because you have to go around the
it is
Kampala
huge.
everywhere.
Wakiso is a huge district. It's a huge district in number of population and even a distance. You can imagine from Entebbe to Nansana. That is one area. So I really feel that there is a huge problem in formation of districts and constituencies in Uganda, which if our elections are supposed to produce good results, we need to look at them very carefully. Because, as you are mentioning Karamoja, there are constituencies in Karamoja with the 2,000 people are represented, not voters. You are representing 2,000 people in Iki. But they say, okay, these are the society which should be represented because they may disappear. What about the ones on Mountain Elgon? How come for them they are not represented? They are called, they are not Sebei, forgotten their name, I will remember later. What about Batwa? Batwa should also have a representative in Kisoro because we want to protect them. But there is a proper calculation that is done. That here, if we give these ones, we are sure that this one will be ours. But the other one, no. Leave that alone. So that's what we call gerrymandering. So in Uganda, it is real. Those who want to understand it, just go and read that book by Eliot. This man did a very good research and nobody can...
What's the title?
The title is, let me just
put it on the group.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ojambo. Major.
I really wonder why my colleagues have actually not defined gerrymandering. All of them.
You can do
Political gerrymandering is a drawing of electoral boundaries. Not local government. We are mixing here local government. We are mixing so many things. But gerrymandering is the drawing of electoral map in a squared way that favors a political party. Or it is a deliberate division of a group so that you avoid them voting as a group.
That's what we have been saying.
No, you have not. For example, Kumam. If you had Kumam and you fear that Kumam will vote UPC, what you do, you divide Kumam into half. So that half of Kumam goes this way, a half of Kumam goes that way. Now, when they vote here, they are dissolved. They don't. Because if you left Kumam together as a unit, that Kumam, you know that their political views is to UPC, for example. So that deliberate dissecting of Kumam is what is called gerrymandering. And I do not see how it came out here clear.
Really?
But
you were sleeping,
Major,
I think.
You were sleeping.
You must have been
You mix
sleeping.
issues.
Major, so just very
for
quickly.
correction of record. In Uganda, there is a thin line between local government and electoral areas.
Actually.
Because one of our electoral area is a district.
Yes.
And that is what we explained, that some districts are so small so much so that they have been created to form two electorates, a district woman MP and the constituency. It is the same.
Yeah.
The other local government area is a county. In Uganda, most of the counties, what we call a county, is what became a constituency in Uganda. So
that was pretty much the
Yeah, let me just read the academic definition. I don't see why, because on a show we have not been saying you must define ABC, define a voter, define what. That has not been our style of debating. But the definitions are implied because we explain what we mean. But if you want an academic definition, it's a manipulation of electoral boundaries to give unfair advantage to a particular political group. So we can proceed.
And he gave a very good example of Kumam.
Yeah.
In fact, in Uganda, Kumam is I don't know where you got it, is one of the very, Kaberamaido and the other district, Kalaki, were separated because of that.
Carry on, Major.
Yeah, you see, this kind of debate where you make a presentation and I present and you jump up with something, it means therefore you did not make a cohesive presentation such that you jump in at any time. You must have known in your presentation that what is this gap I'm leaving, so that you present a cohesive presentation, that you don't remember this. By the way, let me say this, and by the way, no, that does not really augur well, because our viewers need to learn also. So me, what I'm saying is, political gerrymandering, the drawing of boundaries in a shape that you meander like this. It is about the shapes of the district, not the size. It's not that Kira municipality has 400,000.
No way.
That is not political gerrymandering. Political gerrymandering would mean you actually, instead of having the 400, you could twist. It is a twisting of boundaries. You cannot talk of political gerrymandering without mentioning boundaries.
That is now siyasa.
It is a twisting of boundaries. So there are two things in political gerrymandering: how you manipulate the shapiness of the boundaries, and also how you divide a community. The example I gave in Kumam. None of this is applicable right now. Therefore, if you charge Uganda or NRM for gerrymandering, zero.
So you wouldn't say the creation of all these districts, the 146 and counting, is actually, you would not actually describe it as that, as creating electoral.
It is not. It says it involves drawing districts with convoluted shapes, or dividing communities.
What?
Convoluted shapes meaning you just meander around.
Wikipedia.
Meander around. So you people, you are discussing something else, and you are superimposing it on a political term that is not applicable. In other words, what is coming out of your mouth is not what you are thinking, or you are thinking wrongly. You are putting a wrong thing. If you talk to an expert who is talking about political gerrymandering, he'll say, what are you talking about? Therefore, political gerrymandering is not existing. If the topic here is how we apportion the remember, there are debates here whether we should have proportional representation vis-a-vis the other representation. So what we are talking about is the attempt of whether representation should be on proportionality of population. That proportional representation is different from gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is to play around with shapes, to twist it, or gerrymandering is to get Kumam, you know that they'll vote in this way, divide them so that they are weak. It's not about proportionality.
But also, what about...
So if we are to discuss a topic of proportionality, how unfair or fair, we discuss it at church, as church, not discussing gerrymandering. It's as if we lack English. As if we lack English to be discussing why when we're discussing Z. Oh.
Okay, so let's talk about...
So there's no political gerrymandering in Uganda. No, you are discussing proportional representation, and this has been a matter of constitutionality. Should we have proportional representation or should we have according to geographical location? And that is why now you find in Karamoja, because what we're using now is not proportional representation. That is why you find a 2,000 people represented in Karamoja as a constituency. So if the issue before on our table is to discuss proportionality of representation, let it be such. But if the charge sheet here is reading political gerrymandering, there is no political gerrymandering in Uganda.
So
simple.
let me just read.
She's surprising.
You see,
She's very surprising.
You talk of proportionality. You're not talking of gerrymandering.
We are running out of time.
Yeah,
but
and
we need to also talk about the issues that are going to shape the elections.
So there are three demonstrations of political gerrymandering. Political gerrymandering definition, and I'm going to read word by word. 1. Deliberately drawing voting district lines to favor one party, which
That
is
is the major
Can you
definition.
wait? Yes, I said there are three. Can you
That
keep
is the
quiet?
major definition.
Deliberately drawing voting district lines to favor one party, comma, reduce the influence of opposition voters, comma, or secure more seats than a party would fairly earn based in its overall support.
True.
So, a funder which is confining his mind
Is now
for a narrow
special
just and forgetting the rest. The rest of the two here, I'm reading word by word. It refers to what we are talking about. When you carve out Nakawa constituency was divided. The intention of dividing was a hope that Ruhinda can win back, secure one portion for NRM. Unfortunately, they lost to opposition. Chira municipality, if there was an NRM MP, or any hope that NRM can win, that constituency should be divided into 4, so that at least each one is 100,000 voters or people. Now, because NRM knows there is no way they can win, Honorable Semuju has to campaign in the biggest constituency in Uganda. When you go to smaller things they've divided, you even find 3,000 people. Yet the Constitution under Article 63(5) on constituencies and how they should be demarcated is clear. There must be a population quota proportion in all these constituencies. But we don't follow the Constitution. So I found out which don't bother voters with a narrow definition. You can read what I've just told.
What is that you are reading?
What were you reading?
I'm reading whatever.
Did I ask you? So what you are reading, whatever, and you are asking does that mean okay?
Yes, very quickly, then I come to
Let me
Joseph.
save you from these readings.
In 1 minute, in 1 minute, Dr. Ojambo, then I go to Joseph.
Really scholarly work. When you read your definitions
Scholarly work that deals of
from all the sources,
This is a lecturer who has done scholarly work on the
when you
subject.
read your definitions from all the sources, Wikipedia, I don't know which dictionary, I don't know what,
I'm reading
you
the Black
come
Law
up
Dictionary.
with your own working definition.
Yes.
Your own.
Yeah.
Your own working
Yes.
definition. And for me, I don't want to go into a lot of things to define gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is a situation where a politician or a leader creates advantage for himself through drawing boundaries of electoral college, or creating constituencies, or putting in place circumstances that favor him.
By the way, Awich, constituencies have boundaries.
And by the way, and I hope really we'll conclude with this. The first time I heard the term gerrymandering was when I just joined the British Labour Party. And there was a major Westminster
Scandal.
Scandal in Westminster. You Google them Porter.
Yeah.
In Westminster. And what was it? It was basically locally a council thing, where in local government, and they were sued, it went to court, these guys were humiliated, thanks to the law in that country, and they were conservative government. It was one of the things that started sinking them down. So what was it? Part of it was that allegedly Westminster, predominantly white, privileged heart of London, they wanted to keep it conservative. So because the law provides that when people come in homeless or from other places, whatever they cause, they've got an obligation if they meet a certain criteria, So they started exporting out of Westminster black people or people of a certain sort of income status who would not normally vote Conservative to other places, other councils. And it was found unlawful, and that's gerrymandering as one of the definitions. That's second definition.
Yeah, second definition.
It can even be moving people. In Uganda here,
Yes,
we had
and it can
gerrymandering
be moving
where Obote accused the Kabaka of gerrymandering an election in the lost counties by carrying Baganda people
to vote in
to
Bunyoro.
go and take them to vote in Bunyoro.
And there was not,
that is gerrymandering.
There was actually not information that instead I was going to talk about the reports of the Balalo and this invasion of northern Uganda, including what was the Watsara actually.
Yeah.
So I decided as a lawyer on this thing when all of a sudden there are particular named people in certain parts of Uganda who are now a very big voter and they're not indigenous people to that place. Not that it matters, but in as long as it's politically motivated, to sway, that in itself is gerrymandering.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, very
now-
quickly, then we move to the issues that will shape the coming elections. Yes.
Now,
Major.
the thing is, if you're going to talk to people who know this thing, you risk being ashamed. When you are talking gerrymandering, when you are in fact talking proportionality.
No.
That is why you are talking about an area of 400,000 vis-a-vis an area of 2,000.
Today you are off.
No way, I am talking.
Okay.
Please, political gerrymandering means manipulating, twisting boundaries. And two, political gerrymandering means cutting a population that you think would vote into one into two. Full stop.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with this one are 4,000, this one is 2,000.
I think everyone has made their
Nothing.
point. Everyone has
Nothing.
made their point. It's up
So
to
you are the
viewer
authority in that
to
area.
actually
Today we have accepted you are the authority in that
to
area.
also read more and
You are the authority
educate
in that
yourself about
area.
this. So the issues that will shape the coming elections, very, very quickly. We have, I think, very few minutes, less than 10 probably to go. I need to get your very quick thoughts. Of course, maybe I'll start with you, Mr. Ochieno. What are the critical issues in your opinion that you think will influence the outcome of 2026? Then we move back to Sarah and go back to Major.
I really don't know the way Kawempe happened that actually the elections would necessarily be issues based. Of course, like we said earlier, we only wished that the alternative governments were really in shape and ready to be able to have a conversation. I was on a different program the other day and I was being asked about this proposal by NUP suggesting protest votes as a concept. And I met a member of NUP, a member of Parliament actually, in a discussion, I think the other day, Capital Radio. I'm not quite sure whether I got quite convinced by Comrade Rich talking about this definition of terms and how these things are used. I think in terms of political messaging, and I think the academic, the director, I could take ownership that it's something we've been around for a bit some time. Political messaging is extremely important, and in the average democracy, it matters the issues, it matters how you present, it matters what you do, and including what you don't do. Because it's all agreed that the electoral process is substantially twisted towards NRM, I'm not quite sure whether there is anything much the alternative position would do. The NRM are going to continue with their propaganda that they've given you districts and now Museveni is your God and this son is a Deputy Jesus and that PDM is yours and you better be thankful to them for security and that you're sleeping and before they came in there was mess and there was no Republic of Uganda. Ideally, if it was an issue-based campaign, I think what NRM is trying to talk about, longevity would really be an issue. And it would actually serve to the disadvantage of NRM. You've done 40 years in power. What is it else that you want to do? In fact, however well you've done, what is it that you've not done that you need another 5 years for? You've been allegedly in active politics since the age of 16, so you claim some of it is a lie. And you're now 80 and struggling. What is it that you really want to do in public office, the same office that you came into by force? Those issues. But then beyond that, public service is such a shambolic mess. It would actually be a mainstream thing for the democratic opposition. The fact that today I had to pay a huge amount of money just to go and seek basic medical consultation. And I was telling Dr. Ojambo before we came on air that the amount of money that I paid, I don't know how many people in Nagongere, soon to be municipality, couldn't be able to afford half that money, basically as medical services. So public services have basically generally collapsed. Number two, and whether it's education or health and infrastructure or agriculture. Education, I met a headmistress the other day who told me about UPE's 7,000 Uganda shillings. And what does 7,000 shillings do? But also privileged to meet my primary 6 teacher, Mr. Ward, fantastic guy. And we're having a conversation, and the guy in retirement is saying, what a shambolic situation we are in the situation with education. And so in Toro, for example, no new road in the old Toro district. So we're actually talking to infrastructure and campaign on no Nagongera road and no infrastructure in Toro, no votes, if we are to stick onto that. But most importantly, the the question of corruption. Corruption really would be a very critical item that actually if we used and organized as supplementaries, the bribery of the members of parliament using this of the money, it would be a very big thing if well put together across the political divide to reach the citizens. I've been across the country, and then one of the things that you find is the amount of ignorance that the electors face. I was talking to a group of students the other day. They didn't know. These are university students and actually students of education, nearly 24 of them, but none of them knew that I studied for free. Mr. Museveni studied for free in university, that education was free after O-level kind of stuff. So there's so many issues that we as opposition could raise, but that is if we have the opportunity to reach out to the population, engage the population constructively, and seek them to demonetize politics. Finally, on the question of security, the security thing that the NRA guys ran with, and law and order, it syncs with Kawempe. If we picked Kawempe alone and ran with it across the country, and if we picked Kawempe alone and took Kawempe to Karamoja, if we took Kawempe to Chinoni, if we took Kawempe to Busiu and Lumino, and we took Kawempe to Atiak, quite clearly there's no reason why those themselves alone could not be substantial issues. Finally, I talked about Atiak. Atiak sugar, the person who controls Atiak sugar which has brought poverty in Busoga, is being taken to Atiak, to Acholi. But Acholi is a post-complex community. So Acholi people ought to have been given money given to this dubious woman, Pineti and this other dubious woman, the money given to London. There are so many issues that all we need to mobilize and organize them strategically and make sure that these things reach the people. People just need to know the monies that are being stolen from them, that Mr. Museveni and his group are flashing at, and their money, and they're basically indebting us. I don't want to go to some of these like maybe public data and those things, because it's sort of quite related.
Thank you. Dr. Sarah.
Well, for me, I think 3 issues will determine the election. One is violence. Yeah, so the Kawempe was for the NRM to show us their power. Including members with 100 guns, don't play around with us. We went to the bush kind of thing. That will work, especially in opposition strongholds. There will be too much violence. The second issue is money. Of course, they have the keys to our money, all of us collectively. They want even to encroach on other private resources, including collecting fees. I hope the churches, the religious institutions own 90% of schools in Uganda. I hope they refuse. They want to collect every money from citizens and be in control. And our children are going to starve. University students are dying of hunger because URI is controlling money and they don't have food to eat. So if we cannot allow this terrorism to be extended to our young children in Uganda, it won't happen. So they want also to collect tomorrow donations that come to NGOs. Yes. So they want also, we have created a basket. If you have money for NGOs in Uganda, throw it here so that they hold it. These are like really, it's like growing a vulture in your house. I want all the food, or I eat you. That's where we are. So, this thing NRM, you voters, they are now like this. I want all the food, or I eat you. So you people, please, keep quiet, but go and vote this system out. It is really too much. The third element will be rigging, where they can't use money, violence, then they will rig. Ballot stuffing, running with ballots, whatever, destroying polling materials. That's how NRM will retain its fraudulent majority.
Dr. Ojambo.
Yeah, for me, I have listened to what I agree with what most of the things they say, but there are going to be different issues in different areas. In Uganda, NUP will still win. Landslide.
Yeah.
It will be a huge landslide win. Maybe with the Mpuga may survive. I've been looking at Mpuga may survive and a few others, but it's going to be a landslide win with the exception of a few constituencies in Chivoga, Chankwanzi, Nakasongola, where the population makeup is a little bit, but the rest of the country, and the issue is going to be we have been treated unfairly. And that is what the NUP people have mastered. They are saying we have been treated unfairly. We pay the highest tax, but look at our roads. Look at our this. Look at the other ones. Eastern Uganda is neither here nor there. Eastern Uganda with the collapse of FDC, because FDC was the major player there in Soroti, in some parts of Mbale, some parts of... So with the Eastern Uganda, it is going to be shared with the majority will go to NRM. Majority of the Eastern will go to NRM. Northern Uganda, the issue is land. That land issue, be careful. People will be shocked because the rural people. I have been seeing the work which is being done there by Gilbert Olanya, by Odongao To and company. Of course, there are people they have bought the likes of Ogengala Tigo are neither here nor there, but people are going to protest against them. The groups of Ogengala Tigo, this General who, Otema, and what have you, who are taking square miles of land in Noya and some parts of Agago and many other places. The local people may surprise them with a protest vote. So they are going to share NRM and opposition. But NUP will not step there. NUP will not step in the Greater Choli because of the south-north divide in Uganda. The people in the north look at NUP as a southern party. More so, Buganda. So there is going to be a big problem for NUP. So if these other parties maybe can strengthen FDC, PP what? This one, or which has failed to be registered. That one can surprise even winning in the NUP. Elango sub-region, Apache is going to continue being UPC, in my view, and the issue there, they are not yet contented that they have gotten their share. The rest of Lango has now gone into Operation Wealth Creation. So whoever has benefited from wealth creation is going to run away with NRM. So the issue is going to be the president have created PDM, Parish Development Model. Many villagers think that that is money donated to them by His Excellency Yoweri Museveni, and therefore some of them are grateful. Municipalities and the urban areas in Uganda are going to continue the same, protesting against the NRM, because these are the people who really face the vagaries of life, unemployment, high standards of living. They don't see what government is doing to them. You to survive in Kampala, to survive in any municipality, you must have money. And the government is being accused of taxing them high and creating. So any politician who will come up with that very good narrative of how the government has blocked their livelihood, they will vote that one. MPs generally are going to be voted on individual merit. MPs, especially outside NUP stronghold. In the NUP area, they are going to be frog matched to vote NUP MPs. But in other areas, they are going to vote an MP depending on how you have helped their livelihood, especially in rural areas. Because MPs have abdicated their duty their main duty of working in parliament to becoming NGOs in the rural areas, helping people to bury, helping people to pay school fees, helping people to pay bills in hospital. So the one who succeeds in that area. And that's why you see the turnover is very high, because when you go there, you have a lot of vigor to pay. But when you become an MP, you cannot sustain such a thing, and therefore they feel that I think the new one may give us more goodies than the old one. So they are going to vote many out. Around 300 MPs may go home, and the new ones will
Thank you
come back.
very much.
Your 10 minutes is still left.
It's now for you.
So just 30 seconds. That whatever happens with Lango, regardless of the leadership question in UPC, Lango is almost certainly going to be voting predominantly UPC. It's just a shame that we have these issues, but I think the trend has changed generally in terms of voting. Yes.
Well, I still hope you have your 10 minutes, but I will be brief. My understanding of your question is that when you ask for what will shape the election, it's like if it was in America, what would shape would be, say, abortion will be an issue, or the war in Ukraine will be an issue. Now, taking from that here, I would like to agree that maybe issues will be region specific. And to that extent, for us as a party, we have sent out researchers to fish out likely issues that will shape this election. So we have sent out our researchers in all regions to pick what are the likely issues that will shape. But by far and average, for us as a ruling party, we seem to be facing issues. We are like beating our own record. For example, the issue of peace will come up. And this one I tested recently. I went to Agago. The long motorcade. But I rang two people who were not friends, and I asked their views. And they didn't know I was talking to both. All of them said Akena passed here, but for us we said Museveni has chased Kyambogo, we are not listening to UPC. I asked the other one, and they are not friends, but they said the same thing. So peace will continue to be an issue. We sleep at night. It will continue that we sleep at night. The other thing would be service delivery, especially for us as a ruling party. We shall be judged a lot on service delivery. You promised this, have you done it? And that's why we have tried to do diligence, because we shall be asked, you promised us in the last manifesto this, what have you done? So many things will come up, and some will be regional specific, like cattle rustling will still come up in the border areas. It will come up in the border areas. So most issues that will come, many will be region specific, and to that extent we have already dispersed our researchers to find out. But there are also many which will be across. Like poverty will also be
unemployment.
Unemployment. So those which will be cut across the country, like unemployment, poverty, we may have to do a lot of explanation, especially the fact that we have been the ruling government. So we take the liability to explain. But we shall explain. We have data of what we have done and what we have not done.
And perhaps if you could just conclude, and then we just move this way.
Well, my conclusion on the topic today is that one, there's no political gerrymandering in Uganda. Maybe if the Ugandans feel that the proportional representation should be discussed, so that not other people represent a big number and others represent small, that discussion can be held. And two, we are moving in for election, and we are prepared, and we expect our colleagues to be prepared so that we offer people choices. And then finally is that we shall put our attention to the issues that will be discussed by voters.
Thank you, Major. Joseph.
Just looking back, I just think that, and we discussed this actually with Sarah, I think 2 years or so ago, that Mr. Museveni was already campaigning for the next elections, and he's been doing it using the power of the state and power of incumbency, but most importantly, deliberately killing and breaking and disassembling the opposition parties. It's the way Dr. Ojambo says it, that it's like a game of swimming where you go in and one side has got swimming costumes, the other one's they're wrapped up in coats and then blankets and gumboots. So that's not really the nature of that. But that said also, I have always continuously said that the burden of responsibility at the critical level lies with us in the democratic opposition, that notwithstanding everything else, we should be able to think critically in the hostile environment to be able to do better. I don't think where we are should be ideally where we should have been, considering the violent manner in which elections 2020 21 elections actually did take place. I don't know whether political parties prepared themselves in immediate response at the time. And here we are, it's already May, and apart from internal squabbles across really the political divide, which must include NRA, which have settled theirs very well by making sure that the leader of a political organization which was nearly ruling is now the army commander, and he directs things as he so wishes via Twitter. But other than that, unfortunately, my scare is just like Sarah said, Kawempe. Sarah and I experienced it very. There's a big media thing in which Sarah and I were supposed to appear in the Global Media Network. Sarah, I want to repeat. When I was in Nagongera and I was talking to bigger media network, the scare of what happened in 2021 election, I've never been genuinely that political scared. And my worry is that we may be preparing ourselves for the very same thing coming the next election.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, my call and my analysis is that generally you cannot deceive yourselves that there will be a level playing field in Uganda, that there will be time for people to discuss the real issues that affect citizens. If you support opposition, you will be on the run. Some people are already missing. If you seek change in Uganda, if you are not a spokesperson of anything or you're not in the public sphere, just keep quiet, go in your house, turn up to vote. I know that there's a lot of apathy, there is no vote education. Just keep in your work as usual, turn up massively to vote. There is no dictator who has ever managed to rig an overwhelming defeat. Do your duties.
Thank you, Major.
Yeah, as
Dr.
I
Ojambo.
said, we have not prepared ourselves for a good election in 2026. Both government, neither political parties. In fact, what the government has done is to create a patron-client relationship, giver and receiver. And this patron uses that as a chance to move around and say, I am better than these ones because I'm giving you this, I'm giving you the other. And the voters have turned themselves into clients. And that creates a very big problem. Two, because of that, it calls for confusion. And here the solution is normally the military. And with the election still being monitored by people in guns, they are still going to be chaos because they have no idea. They will just either shoot people or disappear with the people. So I want to also say that the best thing is for common people to keep silent with what they think should be done in this country. If they believe in change, let them go in big numbers and vote. Stop shouting, because if you keep shouting, you will disappear. If you keep shouting, somebody is going to shoot you. As I speak now, students were dismissed from Kyambogo University because they just said they are not happy with paying surcharge. They have been dismissed. They are not going to do exams. And you can imagine in a university where people cannot say that this is not good. They have not broken any window. So in the next election, we need to be careful, keep alive. Semogerere used to say that behave well so that the good government that you want to find you when you are alive and when you are dead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Robert Ojambo, Dr. Sarah Bireete, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, and you, retired Major Awich Pollar, for your views and insights in this discussion. We've been assessing the political parties' readiness or preparedness ahead of the 2026 general elections. My name is Judith Atim. I'm your host. Thank you very much for making time and joining us on this edition of the Citizens Chat Show. Please share your views, be part of the conversation, drop us a comment in the comment section, subscribe to our channel, and also follow us on our different social media platforms. Thank you very much. The Citizens Chat Show returns next week, same time. Until then, bye-bye.